A tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero.
Hello and welcome to the Power of Zero show. Grateful that you're with us for another week. We just passed our 80th episode, so I think we've got some staying power here, folks. Once again, I am the best-selling author of The Power of Zero, Look Before You Lerp, The Volatility Shield, and coming November 17th, Tax-Free Income for Life. And by the way, you can pre-order that right now if you'd like to. Just go to Amazon. If you are looking for a Power of Zero advisor to help you navigate all of the pitfalls that stand between you and the 0% tax bracket, head on over to davidmcknight.com. And if you are an advisor aspiring to the realms of Power of Zero strategy, feel free to head over to powerofzero.com to learn more and opt into the video series. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'd really appreciate a follow. It's at McKnight & Co., at McKnight & Co. And if you want to buy our books in bulk, go to powerzero.com/books. All right, so let's talk about the implications of the federal government having waived RMDs for 2020. This is kind of a big deal. It's not as big a deal for quite a few Americans. Remember, only 20% of Americans would not take their RMDs if they didn't need to. In other words, only there are 20% of Americans who don't spend their RMDs. 80% of Americans rely on their RMDs to be able to pay for daily expenses, lifestyle expenses. So really, this waiving of the RMD only affects 20% of Americans who would not otherwise have needed those dollars to be able to sustain their lifestyle expenses. But for those people who are in that 20%, this is a very, very important thing to note, and I'm going to talk about some reasons why this is going to be an opportunity. So who qualifies for this? Well, anybody who had an RMD due in 2020 from your 401k, IRA, 403b, 457, what have you. You remember the new RMD age is 72. It's no longer 70 and a half, it's 72. Why is this a big deal? Well, you got to recognize that with RMDs, the IRS takes the value of your account on December 31st of the previous year. So in this case, December 31st, 2019. Where was the stock market December 31st, 2019? Well, it was almost $28,500, just shy of $28,500. At the time of this podcast, and I recognize that this is a very volatile situation, you'll probably get this about a week from when I record this. But as of right now, the Dow Jones is at about 24,200, okay? So what the IRS is forcing you to do is they're forcing you in a normal year, they're forcing you to take the RMD on that IRA at the value that the account was at on December 31st of the prior year. So in this case, you would be required to take your RMD on the $28,500 amount, or 28,500 point amount, which is where the Dow is December 31st, 2019. And you would have to take the RMD based on that amount, and you have to pay the tax based on that amount. Okay, so what's the problem with that? Well, the stock market right now is down, between 15 and 20%, which is a big deal, because essentially what they're forcing you to do is they're forcing you to sell low. We've always been told to buy low, sell high, but they're forcing you to liquidate these investments while they're down, which is a big deal because even if you don't need the money at this point in time, you will no longer be able to benefit from the tax-deferred nature of that IRA. You'll have to take that money, you'll have to deposit it into your savings account or some sort of taxable investment in your taxable bucket, and you will now have to start paying 1099s on any growth that you experience in those investments. Okay, so it's a pretty big deal that they decided to waive this because, and they also did this, the last time they did this was back in 2009 in the immediate wake of the recession and the collateralized mortgage debt obligation crisis That was the last time they allowed this. So it's a good move on the part of the federal government. It's actually going to create another hole in their budget because they're relying on RMDs to be able to meet their budgetary requirements. And so this is another hole in the federal budget that they're probably going to have to compensate for by raising taxes somewhere down the road. By the way, not to get too far afield here, but as you know, we just passed the 25 trillion mark. We went from 24 trillion to 25 trillion in a little less than a month. I wouldn't be surprised if at a year out from this COVID-19 crisis first hitting, I wouldn't be surprised if we were up $4 to $5 trillion of debt. We are accumulating debt at breakneck speed, which means that the low tax rates that we are enjoying right now are all the more a good deal. It's all the more the concepts that we talk about in the Power of Zero approach are all the more urgent, all the more poignant because of what's going on in this COVID-19 reality. So why else is this a big deal? Well, tax rates are historically low. We're in the middle of the tax sale of a lifetime. The other reason this is a big deal is because think about it. When you take an RMD, like I said, you have to take that money if you're not going to spend it, and you have to put it into your taxable bucket. You do not have the luxury of converting it to a Roth IRA. Your RMD cannot count towards your Roth conversion. In fact, you have to take that RMD, and after having taken that RMD, then you can do your Roth conversion. So RMDs do not count towards Roth conversions. Well, guess what? This year, you can take that money that you would have otherwise been forced to take as an RMD and pay tax on, by the way, and instead of putting it into your taxable bucket where it would be put back into circulation and you'd have to pay tax on it on an ongoing basis, you now have the luxury of putting that into your tax-free bucket. So this is sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card that the IRS has given. So I'm encouraging people that would have otherwise had to take that RMD and they weren't going to spend it, but they were going to put it into their taxable bucket and would be forced to pay taxes on it in perpetuity. I am now encouraging them to take that money and instead do a Roth conversion on those dollars. So instead of the money going from the tax-deferred bucket to the tax-free or to the taxable bucket, instead of going from right to left, we want that money going from left to right. We want it going from the tax-deferred bucket to the tax-free bucket. And this is going to, while it's not going to single-handedly save your financial situation or create a massive, hugely quantifiable difference, I think that every little bit helps, especially at a period in history when we're marching into a future where tax rates are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today. Okay, so one little warning here. This is a new reality as a result of the Secure Act. Just remember that Roth conversions cannot be undone. So it used to be that you could do a Roth conversion, and if you didn't feel like it was a good deal, the stock market plummeted, which is exactly the opposite of what you want to have happen when you're doing Roth conversions. It used to be that you could recharacterize your Roth conversions. You can no longer do that. So it's very important that you feel confident that the tax rate that you're paying now is going to be lower than what you would potentially be paying in the future. So is there any downside? The only downside is that anyone who needs the funds and takes the RMD anyway will not benefit. So if you're part of that 80% of America who were going to be taking that RMD anyway, this is not really going to help you. It's suspending the RMD that you required for the sustaining of your lifestyle. So long story short here, we are in the middle of the tax sale of a lifetime. We have 6 years during which to enjoy historically low tax rates. Every year that goes by where you fail to take advantage of historically low tax rates is potentially a year beyond 2026 where you could be forced to pay the highest tax rates in your lifetime. So this is just a little opportunity. It's not earth-shattering, but it's a little opportunity for the 20% of America who feels like They don't need those RMDs. Why not, instead of sending those RMDs and paying taxes on them into your taxable bucket, why not take those RMDs and take what you would have otherwise had to withdraw by way of those RMDs and do a Roth conversion? Get that money into your tax-free bucket. Let it grow and compound in your tax-free bucket. One other thing that is important is while the stock market is down this 15 and 20%, you are going to be paying tax on a much lower amount. You're going to be paying, only 80%, 80 to 85% of the tax that you would have otherwise had to pay. And let's pay the tax at that lower amount, get it into the tax-free bucket, let it recover within the tax-free bucket. I gave an example a few weeks ago that if you converted $1 million at sometime in February in your IRA, and you did it all in 1 year, not that I would recommend this, I'm just trying to make a point, you would pay about $300,000 of federal tax. If, however, you waited until the nadir of the stock market when it was down 35%, you would have only paid $167,000. You could have gotten that $650,000 into your tax-free bucket and then allowed it to recover within the tax-free bucket. We all know that your IRA is going to eventually get back up to $1 million. So why not pay the tax on the $650,000 at $167,000 of tax versus paying tax on the full $1 million, which would have cost you a cool $300,000. So that's the strategy that I want to bring to your attention, that there is opportunity in the IRS waiving the RMDs if you're part of that 20% of America who does not plan on spending your RMD in a given year. So for those of you who would love to follow me, I would love it. Subscribe to me, and you will get a notification every time we do a new podcast in whatever channel you listen to your podcasts. And once again, if you're looking for an advisor to help you navigate all of these different details and strategies on how to get to the 0% tax bracket, remember, this is not cookie cutter. You can't just take, for example, my Power of Zero book and use that, for example, as a prism on your own financial situation. You need someone who has navigated this path before. You need someone who can shepherd you through and around all these different pitfalls that stand between you and the 0% tax bracket. So find someone you can trust. If you don't have someone that you can trust, I'm happy to point you in the right direction. Head over to davidmcknight.com. Again, if you are an advisor looking to assimilate these principles into your practice and you need some extra help in doing so, head on over to powerofzero.com, opt into the video series, and we're happy to have a chat with you. Well, thanks for being on the podcast again this week. We look forward to chatting with you next week, same time. Talk to you soon.